school. Yeah.
Hospital Quarters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. We're here at Megalithomania, and we've just seen a guy called Gary Biltcliffe, who's come up with some really remarkable ideas. What he's told us about some stuff I've never heard of before, and that is the presence of ancient megalithic monuments in Italy and areas around there. Basically, what you have is the Roman. There's a lot of Roman dated architecture from Italy. Of course, like in Rome itself, the Colosseum and things like that. And there was an earlier culture called the Etruscans that the Roman Empire superseded, which has very, very different styles of walls and building, like big square blocks, these curved cornices. But he says even then, there are much older styles of architecture which involve large polygonal stone blocks, and these have often been misidentified as either Roman or Etruscan. What you have instead is you have different layers of building on top of each other. Very often the newer structure is built on top of older ones.
Reminded me of the Incan city, you know, how they said, oh, the Incans must have done it, when they obviously like filled in the bits with their kind of architecture on top of the bigger megalithic blocks.
Exactly. I mean, I actually asked him how closely, about Cusco, because in Cusco you see structure. Of course, there's different cultures come along. I mean, first there was the Inca culture, and then of course there was the Spanish conquest, and the conquistadors built their own castles and their own churches. The Spanish, and then early before that, there's an earlier megalithic culture. Now, these have been dated to before 5000 BC in some cases. In some cases, they're even older. There's and there's like. What's interesting is that because foundations are often reused, solid foundations, they'll knock something down, they'll build something on top of it. Even in Rome itself, you'll find, more recent Roman buildings, 2,000 odd years old, with these megalithic foundations which date back. No one knows how old they are, but they're very, very different in style, because the Etruscans built square blocks like we do today with our bricks. The Romans tended to have like rubble-filled kind of thin blocks.
Yeah, every civilization had its own building style.
You see that in the old Roman wall, actually, in London. You see these very thin bricks with rubble inside them. That's Roman. The Etruscans were big stone blocks, square stone blocks, which were rather like our bricks. But the polygonal block, as it suggests, they're all kinds of shapes, with flat, faceted sides, and they fit together perfectly.
Triangles,
and sometimes these are huge blocks. Many, there's one that's 8 feet high and 13 feet across, and it's 40 foot up in a wall. Well, how do they get something that heavy, that big, that high?
They are hold it.
Over a little bit, Fred. That's it. Drop it down now. I mean,
it beggars belief, doesn't it? Really.
You couldn't do something like that now. I mean, you could move something that heavy with a crane, with a very large crane. Actually, a very large crane, even by modern standards. But how would you fit it so accurately with all the others? And why do they use these polygonal, very random shapes, almost like a sort of three-dimensional crazy paving? Why do they build all these these very, very odd shapes, which would have actually made the building work more difficult if you were using conventional methods?
And I often think that, if maybe we could transport them back in time and they looked at some of our structures, they'd be like, why have you done that? You've done it the really hard way, They might have looked at us like kind of simpletons.
They would. I mean, this is a strange thing. I mean, there was these walls, these megalithic walls. The reason they've been around so long is they're sturdy enough to resist earthquakes. A lot of the more recent buildings, like ancient Greek and Roman buildings, it's odd to talk about those things as recent, but as far as the timescales we're talking about go, ancient Greece and the Roman Empire were recent. Now, those buildings will fall down eventually due to the earthquakes in the region. These megalithic walls, they're always there.
They've stood the test of time, haven't they?
In fact, this really.
He said something very interesting at the end there, and it was to do with one of the questions as to why did these great people need to build these massive walls? What were they trying to protect themselves from?
Yeah, I mean, they look to me like some kind of fortress.
Yeah.
Which means they may have been involved in some kind of war. Maybe they were defending themselves against some kind of enemy, maybe in a wartime situation. But you see these things all over the world. I mean, maybe we're just putting ourselves in their heads, and we sort of like trying to put. Maybe there's another reason why they built these.
Do you think they're protecting
fortifications.
themselves from ancient aliens?
Maybe, or maybe, maybe in another, maybe they were flood defences of some kind. Or I mean, it's hard to know because all this happened so long ago, and it happened before what we know, many thousands of years before what we know as history began. And modern academics in the world of archaeology and ancient history, study of the past, they won't even look at this stuff. They either dismiss these things as just part of the Roman building or the Etruscan building, or they say they just don't want to know about it.
Yeah, it's like somebody hasn't done the homework properly.
There's a cover-up over this thing. I mean, there's one lady asked a very interesting question. She was talking about anti-gravity, free energy. Now, you know, Gary, to his credit, I mean, in the absence of any other, I mean, he took this seriously himself. He said it's quite possible there was a culture that had knowledge.
Yeah, and I mean, these people have got PhDs. They're from academia, and they even agree that.
But it's possible these people had access to technology like the Hutchison effect, or Edward Lee Skelton and Coral Castle. And she mentioned Coral Castle, which I've spoken about. I spoke about that. Like, you look at my trip to Hull. Yeah, I did. I'll put a link in the description box where I talk about Coral Castle and that myself. But in the absence of any other theory of how they actually constructed these, why not? That's what I say. So basically, if you go to Italy, which, you know, and areas around it, like parts of Greece, you'll find these remarkable blocks and these remarkable structures. And what's more, they're very similar to those in the Americas and other places. So they were constructed by some sort of global culture which had a way of building, and they had a desire to build very strange structures and the ability to build things which we don't understand. So I'm looking forward to the next bit. I don't know about you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
It's
It's a good start.
Yes, look, they've got a signboard out here. Look, come around here and show the signboard, Richard. There, you see, Megalithomania.
What were the ancients up to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it. 2.5 hospital ports, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.